my last night in Thailand, so let's talk about why I will never ever backpack or like travel Southeast Asia. First reason, biggest reason, is that I'm black. I hate being the center of attention. It's an anxiety thing. Don't like it.
Woman, and I felt safe in most places.
I see all this solo travel thing. It's dangerous. It's dangerous because what do you mean I can just book a flight to Mexico and have the time of my life all by my lonesome self? Like, I'm on a boat in Mexico, just so we know, to be exact. Why are we waiting for groups? Why are we waiting for the group trip? Like, you can have a good time all by yourself.
Black woman, solo travel, and Tracee Ellis Ross. It seems like Tracee Ellis Ross can't catch a break. It's crazy. Now, you probably can tell from this title that in this video, I'm going to be talking about Black solo travel and Black women's freedom and Tracee Ellis Ross. Why is she the subject of this video? This will be explained later. But this video will aim to critique Black womanhood, freedom, which will include Black solo travel, which I have done by the way, and is inspired by Tracee Ellis Ross's new show, which got a lot of hate for it, which is a bit annoying because she's just trying to have some fun alone. So you guys, it's okay to have some fun alone, by the way. It's okay to have some fun by yourself. But hopefully we are able to come up with some sort of explanation, because if a sister cannot go on holiday alone, then you might as well just look her up, because what? Anyway, I am Serena the journalist. I hope you like this video, and if you do, please give it a like, comment and subscribe. We are on the way to 200 subscribers, so literally every little helps. Literally. Now, when we think about Black women in the 21st century living for themselves and following traditional ways of life such as marriage and kids, Tracee Ellis Ross stands out, and for a lot of people she will come to mind. If you don't know who she is an actress, businesswoman, entrepreneur, and is the daughter of the music legend Diana Ross. She has been in a ton of things, with her most notable role being Joan in Girlfriends, which ran from 2002 to 2008, which is basically a show about 4 girlfriends navigating life. It's like Friends, but they're women and all black, so yeah. Tracee was the main character, and as you can imagine, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like that show a lot. But maybe that's another video for another day. She's been around for years and has freely spoken about her challenges when finding a man to date and why she doesn't want to have kids. And yes, guys, a woman doesn't want to have kids. Shocking. So Tracee Ellis Ross' traveling series, which is on Roku, has just been renewed for a 2nd season. The show, as you can imagine, is about solo travel, and if you've wanted to go to Mexico, Morocco or Spain with a lot of clothes and unlimited budget, this show is for you. With this 3-episode travel show, Ellis shows how to solo travel alone and how to reset, renew and get to know oneself better. In one episode, wherever it goes wrong, she just has to surrender, and she shares that her vacation allows her to sit down, be tender and gentle with herself. This series is a fun, bubbly and travel-influenced reality show with the profound message, I believe, is that you're free and single in your 50s. It's possible to love yourself and appreciate yourself. And not only is this possible, but it's a necessity to practice self-care, especially for a Black woman. As we all know, traditionally, single, child-free women have been shamed, criticized and kind of made fun of in society. But more people sharing their life experiences, vloggers and whatnot, we are sharing how we're living unapologetically connected to joy beyond the narrow and quite trapping belief systems of some judgmental people. As I mentioned, Tracee Ellis Ross has been open about sharing her singledom for a few years now and has gone viral a couple times for it, whether that's confessions or just with some of her pictures or memes about how she's not sad about it. She was most recently on Michelle Obama's podcast, where she spoke about why dating is hard and why she normally goes for younger men. Now, I low-key wish that she spoke about something else, because low-key, I am actually interested in her, but I feel like she's making being single like her brand, which is cool, but like, girl, you are not only the single 50+ woman in this world. But anyway, I do want to say that I think Tracee is a great example of knowing that happiness can come from the self and can come from the internal than from the external. I do think we're in a time where you have people who are happy on the inside but continuously live and indulge in bougie lifestyles, which I low-key think that's where the true happiness comes from. Now, this is where I've seen a lot of negativity when it comes from this series. A lot of people are saying that they can't relate to her because of her lifestyle, which is understandable. But still, what can you expect? Is Tracee Ellis Ross like? There's a certain type of luxury in the show that you and I do not have. 5 suitcases, luxury resorts, fashionable clothes, room service, which is nothing that you and I could probably afford, or that we could afford, but just not on a regular basis. People are saying that they would love to see her take to the public transit, wander around the streets without a camera crew, and stay at hostels, as so many of us solo travelers do. Reality TV is basically the same thing you think about the Housewives, the Kardashians, Love and Hip Hop. They're all people we watch, but people who actually don't do the normal type of things that we watch them for. And there was a lot of hate that she wasn't really relatable. And I think for Black women especially, they wanted to see how that pause, because this is kind of an issue which I will explain in the next segment. People saying things like, I expected more XYZ, I expected to see more of the places she visited, and each episode was kind of the same: swim, shop, eat.
I'm 55 and I live for zip lines, e-bikes, hikes, all the physical activities. I love me some TER. I hope that her show evolves to include more activities as well as some budget-friendly options. All she did was shop, eat, complain a little, and cackle. Which maybe that's how she relaxes, but there wasn't a cultural immersion like I was expecting.
Now it's clear that many people had a problem with what she was doing in terms of living this bougie lifestyle. But I'm going to ask you, did you expect anything less? As I mentioned, she's the daughter of a superstar. She is a Nepo baby. She knows nothing less than pure elitism and being in bougie spaces. So I think it's a bit pointless if you expect her to navigate a solo journey in the same way you and I do, even though she makes way more. Don't get me wrong, I do think it's jarring because you were just kind of watching someone indulge in something that you would want to do. But I didn't watch that. I watched it to act this video. Okay? And now I understand that when you watch something, you're either watching it because you want to be able to relate to it, or you're watching it because you want to be wowed by it. And I understand that most people would have watched it wanting to relate to it. And this makes sense considering she's done a lot of relatable things and she's on this quest for the type of self. And so watching her indulge in things would have been a shock. She did say in an NTV interview that she likes pretty things and that yes, she drinks on holiday because she doesn't drink when she's at home. But she's not the first celebrity to have this elitism claim. Beyonce came under fire once where she poured an expensive bottle of alcohol in a pool during a music video. Elitism. Private jets are a form of elitism. Like, are private jets really necessary? No, but people do it and post about it anyway, despite how bad it is for the environment. So why don't you go and check those people as well? Okay?
I know that's right.
I think there is a extra scrutiny when it comes to Black women and when it comes to freedom and their sense of self-worth, as freedom is something that really isn't considered. And this is where I go on to Black women and the search for freedom. I think it's very interesting that in this series we hear Tracee say that I took my first solo trip and something clicked. I'm responsible for my own happiness. Women in general, there is this traditional outlook that we always look after everyone else first and then ourselves last. Whether this means being a good partner or a good mom or good friends, these are expectations that we extend for other people and then ourselves last. And this extent is actually worse for Black women. The intersectionality of race and gender means that Black women are victims of, unfortunately, both. When you're constantly living under scrutiny, which many women are, it makes it harder for you to be yourself because you're too busy checking or defending yourself. And it makes it harder to be kind to yourself as you're not shown that kindness in reality and wherever you go, especially for Black women. For Black women, many of us have parents and grandparents who grew up in an era where self-love wasn't a thing like it is now. We saw our parents and grandparents sort of struggle through the hard times, making sure your children and husbands were looked after, making sure that the cooking was done, making sure you had big meals on Sunday, doing the washing and cleaning, whilst always working for themselves as well. And a lot of the time stretching themselves different ways until they finally crashed out. That was kind of expected. And as Black women, we kind of had to choose to marry, have kids, look after them, do our best as we battle against sexism and racism in our daily lives. And this is problematic because racism and sexism act as stressors that negatively impact women's mental health as they create negative stereotypes and stressors. There was no time for looking after yourself, taking a minute, pausing and doing something for yourself. And unfortunately, I don't believe that life gave black women that option. Life in the past wasn't kind to black women in that way. We take on the idea that if we work hard as we need to now, then surely when we retire, when we get old, that is a time when we can relax and enjoy life, which is something I do not agree with. Caroline Ray actually writes, "When I turned 50, I knew I had to change my lifestyle and abandon my preconceived ideas of saving for the future. After a successful 25-year career and raising a daughter as a single mother, I knew I had earned the right to spend money on what I wanted. This meant traveling as much as possible. I sold everything I owned and downsized to a 500 square foot apartment in Toronto. I am not waiting for my so-called retirement to miraculously appear. I am going for it and travel most of the year now. I'm going to do it and invest in us. Why wait? Tomorrow is not a guarantee." And so when we think about investing, it's often thought about in a monetary fund. But investing in yourself is looking after your mental health, is stretching, taking rest, doing everything possible to avoid you from spiraling, to make sure that you feel good. This goes hand in hand with the strong black woman trope that has held black women in chains for hundreds of years. Now, for those of you who don't know, the strong black woman implies that black women should not be affected by any sort of stress, whether that be physical, mental, emotional, or psychological, and are expected to be emotionally immune to such experiences. Because of these harmful implications, this normalizes a lack of attention when it comes to these black aspects, where black women often fall victim to these implications. The article "Strong Black Women: Linking Stereotypes, Stress, and Overeating Among a Sample of Black Female College Students" says the SBW label is offered as a compliment but enacted so as to mask the unfair burden placed on black women. In this way, the label obscures the reality of the structural forces that keep black women down, forces that could otherwise be addressed by structural and policy change, and directs attention instead to black women themselves. Being a strong black woman is a necessity response to a racist society in which survival requires strength, wherein this opposite strength is also categorized with being harsh, hardcore, aggressive, and sometimes threatening. It's literally no wonder how these have negative outcomes for black women. The article goes on to say that, however, research is beginning to uncover the unfair burden that the label may place on black women and its effect on stress and their overall health. The stress that characterizes the strong black woman label refers to the physical and emotional labor black women are expected to perform as victims of oppression and discrimination. Black women face an obligation to manifest strength and are expected to act in a manner that exemplifies their resiliency and ability to perform under extreme pressure. And so by this metric, it almost makes black women impossible to be free and invest in yourself in this way. Instead, they end up sacrificing their own needs for others, such as the fictitious character of Mammy. Now, Mammy, what is Mammy? Let's talk about it. The Mammy stereotype emerged during slavery to a hard reality of exploitation, and it's not just affecting history, but it impacts the exact way we see black women. This came out of American history of slavery, when enslaved black women were often forced to work in the kitchen of slave homes, looking after houses, looking after the children, and making sure everything was in order. She would have to leave her own family to tend to other families. And this was not just in the South, but also in the North. Enslaved black women did so much in the homes and were subjected to endless amounts of chores due to the threatening of harsh consequences and punishment. Through their work, there came a time where these black women in the home was depicted as Mammy, a happy, older and devout character who loved to serve white families, to make it seem as though slavery was kind and for their good. But we obviously know that it weren't. We obviously know that it wasn't. Enslavers wanted to hide the assault and harassment faced by women, so they made her this older, nicer, and unthreatening woman. The Mammy character was a creation of white supremacy, a tool to reinforce and legitimize racist hierarchies by depicting black women in a servile position on the screen. And even after slavery ended and it was the Jim Crow era, through segregation and through the media, books, film and TV shows, the Mammy character was still portrayed as a woman here to serve. And it was then where it started to spread. You had the Aunt Jemima stereotype, who was a slave called Nancy Green and was pictured baking, cooking, and basically being the servant. And companies were able to cash in on these products that had her face on it. This stereotype with a harmful myth that was used to defend slavery, and even though these black women faced harshness, they were able to show up and do their job properly. Primarily, one of the most famous examples ever was Hattie McDowell in the 1938 Gone with the Wind movie, and she became the first African American ever to win an Oscar. But despite that, she still had to sit away from her co-stars at the award ceremony because of segregation. And many people don't know this, but I feel like her win reinforced in the eyes of many, the white academy and the audiences, the role that black women should be placed on the screen and the role accepted by white people for black women, both on and off the screen. In recent years, we have had The Help, where we saw black women be these Mammy characters and whose sole purpose was to serve or care for the white characters. We also saw this sort of stereotype despite them not being maids or slaves, but their attributes and place in a film and shows. We see this in Bridgerton, actually, a Shonda Rhimes producer series focused on the lives of young women and their potential suitors in the 18th century of a Georgian London, which despite being set in the century has Queen Charlotte as a black woman and basically a whole mixed and diverse cast. And if you don't know Bridgerton, I'm not going to listen up. Even though the show looks great on the surface, it falls into the Mammy trap. Lady Danbury, notably the only dark-skinned black woman given any prominent role in the cast, is a background character, and she's close to the Duke of Hastings, providing him with relationship advice and emotional support. She doesn't have a further storyline though and remains on the outskirts of the core story, and is purely a vehicle for the white or lighter-skinned black characters' narratives. We also see this crop up in Netflix, The Queen's Gambit. In this show, it focuses on a white chess genius called Beth Harmon, who grows up in an orphanage. At the orphanage, she meets Jolene, a young black girl who takes Beth under her wing, giving her advice on how to adjust to life in the orphanage. We don't hear much about Jolene, and she sort of disappears from the show until several years later when she is needed for Beth's life, when Beth is basically falling apart. Beth has a drink and drug addiction and is still dealing with the loss of her adopted mother. Here, Johnny's existence is a caregiver to Beth, and a character who notably gets almost no support in return for whatever she's going through. And when Jolene has helped Beth to be the person she needs to be, she disappears from the narrative. And this is definitely a modern Mammy, where a character is only part of the show or film to give support for protagonists. And it's just interesting that most of these characters are black. This is why it's important that there needs to be a reclamation of black history, because the image and effect on how black women see themselves and question themselves in their daily lives is from these type of medias. When the world has categorized you into a model where you're only needed to help others, your existence is at the footstool of society, and it creates the implication that there is no room to look or invest in yourself, or further, that you shouldn't do those things. This is why Tracee and so many black women see solo travel as a way of breathing and doing something for yourself. As I mentioned earlier, black women are born in a system where there is a constant need to defend themselves, which in hindsight can just make existing as a black woman exhausting. The constant need to defend ourselves for merely existing in the world is exhausting, which is why many black women turn to travel to escape the pressures of everyday life. According to statistics, searches for the term solo female travel increased threefold during the 4 years preceding the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, recovered in 2022 and surpassed the January 2020 peak in early 2024. Now more than ever, we see how necessary it is. There has always been periods in history, like the one now, where men try to impose laws and policies that control what women can and cannot do with our bodies. Choosing to control our own bodies and our own movement is one way of challenging this crazy attempt at inferiorizing women. Despite all its glory, solo travel for black individuals still come up with its unique challenges. Vivian Donny wrote for CNN that many black spaces and activities still lack representation for women, for people who look like us. Black people hearing one too many stories of our kinfolk feeling excluded and unwelcome. As a result, activities such as hiking and scuba diving feel inaccessible, while luxury experiences can be an unwelcoming experience for many of us. I've had my fair share of unfavourable travel experiences due to being a black woman. These range from receiving scornful looks as I walk down the street to being harassed and touched without giving consent to even being asked how much I charge for sexual acts, because apparently if a black woman is traveling alone, it could only imply one thing. I grew tired of enjoying these experiences alone, especially with no information online highlighting the black experience to help me prepare for my travels. The incident in East Asia where a hotel refused to believe that a black person could be British and went as far as reporting me while holding onto my passport was the final straw. From dealing with racial profiling to navigating spaces where there are visible minorities, these travellers often face hurdles that others do not. But as Wanda Jackson puts it, travelling alone forces you to become your own best friend. Depending on your behaviour style, this may seem a bit grim, but really it's not. It's an opportunity for freedom, growth and self-discovery, which will form the basis of good future relationships. In overcoming these challenges, black solo travellers are not only discovering new places, but also uncovering new layers of their resilience. Solo travel can be freeing and restorative, a chance to hit the restart button or a break to bring you back to touch with yourself. I've actually solo traveled before and recommend everyone, especially black women, to take on that journey and leap of faith that you can do it and that it is possible. Naturally, there are many stories about why we should not travel solo, the terrible things that may happen to us, what we might lose by leaving our homes. And with that, the hesitation is understandable. But for the most part, I believe solo travel will always add something to you, then take it away, and give you the opportunity to serve yourself in a world that deems us to feel small and powerless. For far too long, black women have been told how to live and to exist. We have been forced to exist in spaces that, to be honest, were not built with our comfort in mind. This even comes to body image and how we have absorbed these stereotypes and myths about our bodies, telling ourselves, no, I can't do that, or no, I don't belong here. And this for many people is why people have been denied solo travel or been told just go home and not exist to enjoy life. There is something actually very political and radical about solo travel, because for black women there is a deep meaning of solo travel that's rooted in the political and the personal. For literally centuries, the movement of black bodies have been strictly controlled, especially during colonialism. Black people were forced to be removed from African and Caribbean countries and transported across the globe for the economic advancements of white European nations. Many of the countries that are rich and wealthy today were all because they stood on the backs of black and brown countries. Black bodies were simply a tool for capitalist production, and as such, our access to leisure travel was denied. Caring for myself is not self-indulgent, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare, Audre Lorde once said. And so even as so many things are happening around the world, we alone are responsible for our own emotions. We have to work with things that aren't normally in our control to create incremental positive behavioural changes. This kind of intentional caring for ourselves can feel like a luxury and even exorbitant. Georgina Lawson writes in Why Black Solo Female Travel is a Radical Act that the movement of the black female body was, and still is, heavily policed. In times of bondage, we persevered, but we could not travel freely or for pleasure. Such a concept would have directly contradicted colonial rule. And even though this period has long since ended, black women have inherited a legacy of narrow and biased assumptions about our bodies that impact us today. Neoliberal capitalism and structural discrimination continue to burden and punish black and brown bodies, especially the bodies of black women. The systems we navigate are tainted by white supremacy and have never been designed for our self-discovery or pleasure. For those who don't know, white supremacy is used to explain a system of structural or societal racism which privileges white people over others, regardless of the presence or absence of racial hatred. And so when you go against this oppressive system by traveling, it can be radical and revolutionary. It can be used as a tool for rebellion where we ourselves give us the chance to redefine how we want to be in this world. Historically, there have been explicit laws restricting and controlling the movement of people of African descent, and further, the legacy, racism, among other things, have created implicit standards that make it difficult for blacks to move around the world freely and with ease. Black women traveling the world breaks so many barriers and is an attempt to dispel pathologies which come from the legacy of restricting the movement of Black people and women. Georgina also writes, to travel while Black and female is to upend and overcome legacies of mobility impairment. It is to dispel myths that come from a history of restricted movement. It is to say, see ya to a lifetime of setbacks and struggles. Now, even though that may seem like a lot of pursuit and that the world is too much for a single holiday to fix, I hope it makes you even want to explore solo travel. I think for many, coronavirus and the pandemic made us all rethink the purpose and pleasures behind solo travel. Many were forced to be alone for a longer and extended period of time. And so solo travel, I think, is a great way to further that. A common statistic stated on this issue is that women in the US make 77 cents to a man's dollar. What the statistic leaves out is that Black women, Latina women, and Asian women make even less than 77 cents to every white man's dollar. Traveling solo for leisure is a privilege that more Black women have been able to enjoy in recent years. We do travel for escapism, excitement, and joy, for the fun, the freedom, and the food. We travel because we're lucky enough to venture to places our parents never could, to live out the dreams and intentions of our ancestors and be part of a generation for whom freedom is finally feasible. And so Tracee Ellis Ross doing this on a big screen is her obviously wanting to normalize this solo travel. And I think we should see that as an advantage instead of getting at her that she's in a richer and bigger hotel than we could ever afford. And while the show does look glamorous, Ross does admit that solo travel can be lonely, scary, and uncomfortable. For far too long, women have been told that traveling alone is somehow shameful.
Like, oh, you must be lonely, or poor you, or do you have no one to travel with, do you have no friends?
But Tracee is literally putting all that in the bin and going for it. Tracee understands that we can't give away our power as women, and it's important that we must choose to step into our future with courage and ignore the naysayers. The only way to shift perceptions and overcome fears is to bring them into the spotlight and talk about it together as women with honesty and candor. And I think that's how we create change. This is why I believe it is radical, because Black women are rejecting structures and systems that have been put in place to keep us in our place. These barriers that once upon a time seemed so invincible, but now is something that is possible. It is radical because historically in the Western world, Black women are not rich. We have responsibilities and commitments, and we are also simultaneously pursuing our own very different personal and professional goals. And in a world that for Black women doesn't show the need for self-care and growth is an amazing act of self-love, especially when some people wish to make us hate ourselves. Those hate on Tracee because she's on holiday or because you can't relate, go on holiday. Book that flight. Book that staycation. Do it. Do it. Sorry, no pressure, but do it. But anyway, that was me. What do you think about Tracee Ellis Ross? What do you think about her solo travel? Have you been on a solo travel? Would you recommend it? Recommend any places that you would go or that other people should go to in the comments. And if you've got this far to end the video, we're about 40 minutes in, I think, I hope, or maybe like 35 minutes in. Please do like, comment again, and subscribe. And I will see you soon with another video essay.